Maneva na say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there osia dem yopo.
Emamo ayo abusa for emamo akwaba edemo ba PENDREAM TV so enne nkaibo bi ena yensa kan ye pese ye de bremo a free a year Supreme Court judge, former Supreme Court judge Justice Atuguba. Ghana had ye Ubia we started with politics from 2012 and I say we started here now when FBA from 2012. Ubekai Justice Atuguba our election petition on now we presiding judge was Jumadi no so. Now papa yi na TV3 wakakwasa so ya ochire mu a fa Electoral Commission in semhuna odino this time no say enye abojo so enye ade wo say Ghana ni bia so eye dangerous for this democracy ochire mu asa tintin sa nyoma menye ne ho ade we shouldn't forget that at the end of the day abusuafo at the end of the day every government institution is accountable to the people. So you must, adhere to what the people are asking you to do. They be ano I was say, oh shesa obeye de dodo no ehwehwesa wo ye. Na perpere ye obi ade ntiase adwumfan ebeteno manu enkofa chaos bia emre. Wakeka ensem ya fa sansem we hu NDC for demonstration makone the fact that NDC for call say Electoral Commission man ho kwan ne enye audit forensic audit ewo eye abom no mu no wakeka ho nsem biribiri ewo eye TV3 so mepese yekọ na yekutie enkomo no sede oni okansi atwetwe enkomo ewo TV3 no so abusia high PENDREAM message so subscribe to the channel like video na share to other platform so enya bi enhwe yenko na yekutie enkomo no ohwe ni na wo comment wadwen kire to comment section no ase e di aman yekutie enkomo no embra.
Welcome back. This is your election command center, Ghana Tonight. And let's go straight into it as I promised you. An exclusive interview with a retired justice of the Supreme Court of the Republic of Ghana. It's a wealth of experience sitting through as a panel, in fact, a judge on a number of these election petitions that we've had in this country. He knows exactly how things play out when it comes to concerns and issues about our electoral system as a country. Justice William Atuguba, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight.
Thank you.
It's good to have you. First off, and I know that you've been following how things are playing out with respect to the concerns that the NDC has raised about the errors identified in the provisional register that was exhibited. Other political parties have also aligned with those concerns. The Electoral Commission says, well, they've also identified those errors, but they have corrected them. So really, there's no need for an audit. Where do we go from here?
Americans who are traveling or living a...
the final word purports to be that the corrections have been made, and that's the end of it. The matter ends there, as I understand what your briefing.
Yes, essentially, they say that, well, because they have done those corrections, there is really no need for an audit, even though the NDC says that they have not seen the corrections that the Electoral Commission is saying they have done to the errors, as a matter of fact.
That looks very absurd to me, and I don't intend to be abusive, but to make the point very forcefully, I think it's dictatorial.
Simple.
To take that posture. Because the Constitution gives them the power. But that power is circumscribed by other provisions of the Constitution. Let's look at their powers briefly. Just the relevant parts. The 45 clauses A and D, they are as follows. The Electoral Commission shall have the following functions. A, to compile the register of voters and revise it at such periods as may be determined by law. D, to educate the people on the electoral process and its purpose. Let's even pause here a bit. Is that proper education? Just to tell people who have pointed out grievances, which you have acknowledged exist. And then after that, you say that's the end. We've effected the correction. You have not seen them, and that's the end of it. Is that proper education of the people on the electoral process and its purpose?
No.
I mean, to have blind trust in the mere ipse dixit of the Electoral Commission. I say, because that said so, that's the end. That's a dictatorial posture to take. And for me, others can have their views, but looking at this constitution in the round, that kind of situation is entirely outside the boundaries of the constitutional order put in place. The other provision impinging on the powers of the commission or anybody given power under the constitution is Article 1, Clause 1. Let us always revisit that provision. Is the most important provision in the entire constitution. It says, Article 1, Clause 1, the sovereignty of Ghana resides in the people of Ghana, in whose name and for whose welfare the powers of government are to be exercised in the manner and within the limits laid down in this constitution. So all exercise of constitutional power is to be geared towards the interests and welfare of the people.
Exactly.
As the sovereign of the country. And I'm at pains to see how a sovereign power whose interests and welfare have to be served by all donees of constitutional power can be just dismissed outright. Oh, we've heard gone through your complaint, we've effected the corrections. And from social media, they are not saying they've corrected all, say most of them, and that should be the end of it. To me, that is running, to use an old expression, a chase and fall, as a chariot drawn by horses who did this. Through the provisions of the Constitution. Nobody, and I want to emphasize, nobody has absolute power that detracts from the welfare and interests of the people under this Constitution. That's a central requirement. And I'm sorry, in Africa, and particularly in this country over the years, people just look at power in absolute terms. I'm sorry. You look at the power conferred, look at all the other coexisting provisions. They are relevant to the exercise of your power. Let's look at Article 3, Clauses 3 and 4. Well, this, because of your time factor, all they are saying is that every person now, all citizens of Ghana shall have the right and duty at all times. At all times. And that's at all times, anywhere. Because time does not exist in the vacuum. There must be allied to a place. And so that's part of the at all times. And so every citizen, I want to emphasize that, every 3, 4. All citizens of Ghana shall have the right and duty at all times to defend this constitution, and in particular to resist any person or group of persons seeking to commit any of the acts referred to in clause 3 of this article. Now, let's forget about overthrowing the constitution. But overthrowing the constitution by any unlawful means, is there any unlawful means? Not necessarily by violence or anything. Anything that is not in line with the constitution, any means.
And that includes going into an election with an electoral that has concerns.
Oh, sure. It's not a provision of the constitution.
Right.
And as part of the and every citizen has the right at all times to defend the constitution. That even is enough. The other aspects of abrogation or so, they are all part of the constitution. So the time is constrained. Let's look at Article 41 of the Constitution, duties of a citizen. The exercise and enjoyment of rights and freedoms is inseparable from the performance of duties and obligations, and accordingly it shall be the duty of every citizen B, to uphold and defend this Constitution and the law. And so, I mean, you just don't look at people in their face and tell them this is what I've done, and you have to take it like that. No. If it's not in line with the Constitution, they have the right to insist that you comply, because they have the right and duty to defend the Constitution and the law.
Now, with your experience searching through election petitions for that matter,
yes,
would an audit, as based on what we are confronted with now, be one of the corrective measures to, as it were, satisfy all of these concerns and answer all the questions about the provisional voters register as exhibited?
Absolutely. Now, let me refer to Articles 296 296, exercise of discretionary power, where in this Constitution or in any other law, discretionary power is vested in any person or authority. A, the discretionary power shall be deemed to imply a duty to be fair and candid. Is that an instance of fairness and candidness? I raise plausible errors in the register, and you just tell me, oh, I've effected the corrections. Not even, or say most of them, and that should end the matter. And you say that's fair and candid? Anyway. Let's look at another provision relating to the power of the Electoral Commission. 51. The Electoral Commission shall, by constitutional instrument, make regulations for the effective performance of its functions under this Constitution or any other law, and in particular, for the registration of voters, the conduct of public elections and referenda, including provision for voting by proxy. Their power is to make regulations for the effective performance of its functions. Now, what does efficacy? Is that an effective way of conducting an election? Serious discrepancies are pointed out by a commission which the public doesn't trust much. I don't know much about all this. I'm a lawyer. I don't have time for politics and all that. But what I do know from social media is that people, Afro Barometer says at least 1/3 of the people
Yes.
country don't have trust in the East.
So that's about 33%, I think. Yeah.
And I've read from social media that, I mean, from what they are saying, unless they are wrong, that the Constitution is mostly comprised of politically exposed persons. I mean, in the first place, the person who exercises that power to be, he is mindful of the requirement that the exercise of the power shall be fair and candid. You don't go and bring your stooges to run a national institution.
Well, it is the president who appointed these commissioners.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that their appointment, is in the first place, is fair and candid. If it is true that most of them are politically exposed, is that a fair and candid way of, and should they themselves even accept those appointments? We are not serious.
We are not serious.
We can't be serious, and that's why we are suffering so much. People just enjoy the power without looking at the constraints hedging the power around. That's the African mentality. That's what results in Napoleonic state capture, dictatorship of the type of Mussolini, Stalin, and others. Very amazing that this day and age, all this constitutional journey since 57, we can retrogress like this. Very painful indeed. And others, look, when I was retiring, a lecture was organized in my honor. At the end of it, I asked whether I could say a few words. So, well, I can just say one or two. And I reiterated Article 1+1, that at all times, everybody should be mindful of that provision, particularly judges. And that what would pain me is that some persons can choose that clause which enables them to come to power in the Constitution. And once in power, they seek to negate all the other provisions of the Constitution. And they will get people willing and ready to help them to do so. I couldn't continue. I said, thank you. I went and sat down. This is where we are.
And I sense that level of trouble and as it were the concern about the retrogression in our democracy that you talk about. I mean, what could be the possible implications of what we are faced with, as you have diagnosed, as Napoleonic situation of the state?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I'm just a judge, so you probably have a better background. But if you look at history, let's look at Kenya just recently. What's happening there? I think you followed what has happened there.
Yes, sir.
You saw how the president retreated so many of his powers. And although later he had to reinstate certain taxes, but you know the far-reaching this thing. He was forced to do that. The people, look, I hardly watch TV, but by chance, sometimes when I have a Sunday, I watch last sit by them. During that Kenyan incident, a young man was put before court, and the charge was read to him. His plea was being sought from him. And he said, look, he would continue the fight without fear of anybody. And they were trying to say, oh, but you have to please that. He has no time for that. He is standing where he has come from, and there's no turning back. The police and whatnot tried to, they couldn't, as witness this life. But we all know of the Arab Spring, beginning from Tunisia, went to Libya, some other country, I think Egypt. It even went to Syria, although the situation there was not constitutionally as bad as
the other places. Yes.
And we saw what happened.
And you think that Ghana is at that point? We are at risk of an experience like that?
Well, that you see civil society organizations. For many years, have you seen civil the people massing up and demonstrating here now and then and insisting on their rights and so forth? Have you seen that before? I mean, it's because we have gotten to a level which has provoked that. And nobody knows how it will pan out if dictatorship, right now, I'm sorry to say, but looking at things, if we're honest, and that the importance is honesty. We're honest in this country, there's state capture of this country. Complete state capture. A negation of the Constitution. It has happened.
A negation of the Constitution?
Complete.
How's that?
I mean, you are asking me, are you not in this country?
You just made that reference.
In terms of what is this Constitution being upheld? Tell me.
You don't see the Constitution being upheld in any way?
Is it freedom of speech? Is it the fundamental rights enshrined the right to economic welfare and all that? In fact, our Constitution, let me read this thing. I want to emphasize it. By your time is listening, what it says is that the most sure, the most secure economic rights is the rights to a good life. I mean,
the directive principles of state policy.
Yes, it's there, black and white. I say it at Unate. Is that the stage we are at?
Talking about the most secure democracy being that which is able to meet the basic needs of its people.
Exactly. Is that where we are?
So our democracy is not secured.
Is that how to secure democracy? People, in fact, I get frightened when I think of, on social media, you find tanker drivers, they say they are paid 700 cedis. Some Uber drivers, 300 cedis. These people have been sentenced to death. Can you survive on this? You have no right to marry because you can't sustain the marriage. 700 is not enough for yourself. How do you pay your rent? And Ghanaians are so money-minded. The rents are high, and they don't have time for the rent regulations. Some take 3 years advance and all. I mean, a tube of yam. It's how much?
The least you can
Well,
get is
take
about
it.
30 cities, I think.
Okay. So a person earning 700 or 300. Survive under this. Now, look, even as I'm talking, I'm not above risk, but the truth must be told. I've read on social media, even some time ago, 2 or 3 years ago, a person as dignified, as high as the late, what's his name, Kwesi Bochi. Then he gave a speech somewhere, and he came out on social media to say that he received death threats. Martin Amido received death threats.
Yes.
I mean, is that a democracy?
No.
What are we talking about? What I'm talking about here? Even the right to express yourself. I concede that some people too go off tangent. Right of freedom of speech doesn't mean being vandalistically irresponsible, insulting. When the case of Tommy Thompson Books Limited came to the Supreme Court, they said the libel and sedition laws were not unconstitutional because there cannot be a license to insult as one people. They repealed them, not because they were unconstitutional, but people thought otherwise and repealed them. But if that is done to advance constitutionalism, are we enjoying constitutionalism? Death threats, you see, to people who are speaking their minds, criticizing the government. This day and age.
This day and age.
God have mercy on us.
God have mercy.
And indeed so. Justice William Atuguba, retired. I would want to thank you so much for staying up to even join us on Ghana Tonight and speaking the truth as we are confronted with. And Ghana is glad hearing you tonight. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh no, it's my duty. As a citizen, I read out the duties of a citizen. You know?
Yeah.
But, Prime Minister, but what I want to emphasize, this constitution has, in so many articles and provisions, ensured that there should be constitutionalism in this country. Constitutionalism, rule of law, not rule of democrats, dictators. People who want to behave as if they are monarchs of all the survey in this day and age, and not under this constitution. But Ghanaians, well, they are now rising to defend their rights. Can that happen under a constitution like this? And I think I've exceeded my time. Thank you very much.
In fact, you haven't at all. And we do appreciate this voice of conscience.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Conscience. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Justice William Atuguba, retired, a former justice of the Supreme Court of the Republic of Ghana, speaking to us exclusively here on Ghana Tonight. And we had a special edition tonight, exceeding the time for good reason. And we have a number of you also contributing to the conversation across all social media platforms. Thank you so much, as always, for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. There's going to be another session with him for more time. But thank you. On behalf of the rest of the team, we appreciate.
Obviously, ena yakofa edi abono Justice William Atuguba ena yakofa enkoma ɔne ɔkansi twetwe ye ɛwɔ TV3 so ane mo ankasa mo bedi adanse. In fact, these are the men of conscience Ghanaians need at this stage. People with integrity. The bia ye ka se baby o man na bedru no we nye party asem o nye NDC MPP asem o abusiafo baby a omanpanyin Akuffo Addo Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia ene achem mafiafo no e de o man na bedru no se munim baby o mo dia bedru a ka Ghana fo mu mama ye nyina ya sore waka abom se jata e de agu o mo so enye fa di agro. We are in a hell. Oketechie Afrifa kasem bi. O say Akuffo Addo we ayi na yehuni Akuffo Addo ayi na yehuni. So ofri power. Ye tu aba na ye tu tia sa ankrofo we a no mu free power. It will be the second independence of Ghana. I'm telling you. It will be the second yes. Tie.
Akuffo Addo nini nuanom be sori afri akonya no so no will be the second time Ghana is getting independence. Akuffo Addo nini nuanom be sori afri akonya no so no will be the second time Ghana is getting independence, because Angr wo magene te se Elizabeth mo agene, Angr wo magene te se abrofo agene, Angr mo believe so mo ye first class citizens, o mo nim nyansa che Ghana ni bia, o mo believe so mo na nanom na church ron krata ani JB ayi Elizabeth mo tena and the far he ne kosi. We need a second independence from these people, and we are going to do everything possible for them to lose power. They should never get anywhere close to power in this country.
Abuzanfo, asamwa eye okitichi Afrifa kan yi. Difference be na what ye papa yi e kan yi mu. Justice Atuguba say, baby a yabedru baby a asenkrofo bi agistate no afa. And they are thinking that omono they are above everybody who been to me and count masem, forgetting say constitutional man so they chere no sa constitution no and edisa to me no ama because of Ghana nkrofo yi Ghana saying nipa wo Ghana, and whoever holds any position is accountable to the people, but nkrofo we ba power no omo take over now. Omo ye omo de te sese bio enkrofo omo no obi ntumi nka omo asem, obi ntumi mbo omo chem so na ye nka masem, and omo ye state capture no omo de omo set to Ghana japade so wia Ghana japade nyina, and Ghana mpanyifo da so te ho council of the state et ho peace council mo te ho Christian Council to ho, Islamic Council mo to ho, mo hwe na hwe ha ya trao. And maybe I see odin ketia General Mosquito be ka asem bi say, but o hwe Ghana bakosi mu abusuafo, o hwe Ghana bakosi mu a enyoma ekosi kon efensen coups ahodo a yenya no krum a ku ahodo a yenya no krum ha no, enyoma ahodo ekosi sa nyoma no a ma ku sisi okrum ha no ya tra. This era ya trasa anyomano ya trasa anyomano, and Ghana is at the point of distraction. Ye hwie omana guanesa, and mpanyifo bi are still doing protocol. Like I say, omo the protocol bi I say ye hwe ha Christian Council for ya hwe ha, Islamic Council for ya hwe ha, EFN saying Bishop Catholic Conference for ya hwe ha, Peace Council for ya hwe ha, like National House of Chiefs ahim for mo kroma mo ya hwe ha, civil societies mo ya hwe ha. I say ade na AC no I don't know, say all of a sudden no na FN saying Anglophone say Anglo good omo former boss obeka say Ghana is right now, say Ghana ye kasa nene you were under culture of silence. They were under culture of silence. Ubia to me kanasem. Ya kasa ubia kasa buashe ni yem. Ya bruya bre isu no ubia to. Ubia suro. Ubia to me kasa wa be kasa ne ache. And I don't say ache offense ye nua raf. Bone be na raf ye sabi. Bone be na raf ye. Ya che. Because wako be offense national cathedral government of offense property. Ghana for ye dia. Ya ankasa yesika. Wako bie se yankɔhwɛ. Enti ya china tum. Ye di tumi di nsɛm hunu wɔ kurom ha tumi ye di muasɛm wɔ kurom obi ntumi nka mpanyifo nyina ye di ahemfo ye di kyɛ obi abohu omu ntumi nkasa. I don't know what kind of, if we will be honest to ourselves, there is a state capture in this country. There is a state capture. This is a state man talking. This is a state man talking. Some voice we I will say baby ya born yetie. Ghana baby ya do na busuya. Ya try be careful. Sa wo amanoni wo abrochire wo hifa. Na sa wo hwa unuanom abusuafo e wo krom ha wo namfofo krom ha wo. Ebre aso. Sa ye ma ye homere so. Ni agye oman no esi ho abusuafo. Enyesa agro ebedien. Enyesa agro bedien. Mumma yen sori waka. Ni enje oman no esi ho. What has ye? Yen je oman no esi ho. What abusuafo? Enti mumma ya nimre Ghana for mumma ya nimre mo amanoni mo Ghana ha obiama na nimre mo bia wasa mo de boa ma Ghana esan efa ne ntuma pafiri ano monye. I'm telling you babi ankrofo no de oman ne kon ehu at this day at this day an era this time an era. Adan na wasi yedru sa level we obi anka ye koyenim kakra o mampeni Rollins etumi be ye military man ojai mu boko democracy we asi na boy abaso president Akuffo Addo so democracy kakra obia onusu be jamu Ghana for we asi na boy abaso atamos be so mu mahama be so mahama so kura mu kakra president, sitting president, our titumi so for the first time in Ghana, we lose election, where Jamu Boko transition taking place, we free so I'm a opposition leader be take you over. We are seeing now say Ghana we have reached there. Na obaya. What between sign. Somebody asema Atuguba was we have retrogressed. Ye koye chi. Mufi say agro ye koye chi. Ghana shias Ghana ye wobre ye nan yas ya tetia pansam na moto mu didi agro munnim se nyoma ekoso okruma no mufi se ye fadi agro like masa moma yen sorry o na nyoma bi sisi okroma o ne isi ye na ye ka onfi no ye plan bi no ma take you. They just want to rig the elections by force. Masa moma ye ni na ho na yen sorry waka muma yen sorry waka yen die man ni si ho sempenyifo bi se ni abre na omo kasa na mrante amugugu dem mrante tete social media ni edi agora it is over to us. Sempenyifo bi se ono akọ ne retirement no aba na bra wi abusua papa we oto hoyi so owu nne sebe owu nne sebe nyame fa nko achi owu nne a celebration of life ene ye de be ma no wadi ni mra wie. If omukrampo na sore kasa prefa hundie di ma nchirima na se ye nchirima fo no aye tetete won ne no ye ani ne ye sebi ye dwene ye ho na me de me dwene me ho wadane sebi odwan ye bekwa ba afawo edwa ko ba afode wo ne ye de bedi bronya mbre no so awo ene ba be so mu di ahoma ba ko atwon drededede edwa ko eye mayanka ko twa omene akum because now say emfa ho ye kan sorry o ye nje found you say emfa ho emre ni du a ye beba be so ankon ye do be ko mayanka ne akotwa omene frd ana mu fi say bibia sabe mu fi say kwasi ana say political civil war bia sin kwa na ye problem okruma masa there are offense economic murdering ekoso okrum ha unua beko hospital ade ketewa bi nurses be mana wu kwa doctors be kunu kwa obi antimi nyamu wu empa kwa nya bi na so anibre has come empa kwa hu nya bi na wada so ube wu awia ketekete na hu ade a wapiri ho moma ya ni mere ni anje oman ni si ho ebra na wi aduru abusiafo moma ya nkasa ni anje man Ghana emfasi ho moma ya anje man Ghana emfasi ho na entisa yankasa ye beti bi ehua ha ye PENDREAM TV so abusiafo wadwen kire to comment section nase for wadwen kire to comment section nase efa maye na share video no ekoma manfo so entumi nya binhwe na subscribe to the channel PENDREAM TV ya de bia e mamo the hottest information na ekoba nyina menfa akwanya so abo eye dwumakuo hu adanse e de ho adanse e de akyerew eye border cross travel consult omo say menfa ntum anim say e fa no udwumadie wakwantuo wo bibia wo ethic like wakwantuo airlines ni ticketing any ticketing whatsoever fa akwantu hu no fa wabisa de beto mo anim watrai baako anyeyi mienu anyeyi miensa anyeyi na anyeyi ya ju sika dini ho ade o last stop ni abusua o last stop de bia me ka kire mo say PENDREAM TV ya ndi adwuma ko hu adanse krum hu say ye ka BBC ya na say we know what we are talking about ye nim the credibility that they have. That is why you can't see Eddie Achilem Abusia. Enti ube to me any of my ube to me from now on your makasa border cross travel consult for near Munkasa na omumwa ma baby biara opeso ko o my wiasimu hano ube to me esi omoso na omodo ako ana maboa access to and making sure say what could do pepe na udi friends asida na manyame na uwia wa ma bi asome so be frame adam asese PENDREAM fo nyame nhira mo enyam ntia nka sei ke bia kamanduru ha number obetumi afro mo asiso 030 0303 977 006 0303 977 006 and that's 0500 41 0007 0500 41 0007 but from esisa line we so from akachom say PENDREAM TV so and our saka number no say be obetumi anya bre any or atumi ahyehe nyomani ya na say assist we PENDREAM TV yesi Edam Yopo
PENDREAM TV nyame hira opa na edwuma kese a wo ye de bia me hwe o YouTube and all other social media platforms. It's Ramongo follow PENDREAM TV. Very fantastic talent, doing a lot of the channel.
Dedi kama mamena PENDREAM TV ase. Now so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.